All right, good evening, everyone. Broadcasting live from the top floor of Centennial Hall on the beautiful campus of Missouri University of Science and Technology. I'm your host for tonight's virtual parent Q&A. Now, while this session is designed for parents of admitted students, if your student has not been admitted, if you're not a parent, if you're just a curious cat that would like more information about the institution, I am happy to oblige. So feel free to stick around. Just a few housekeeping items. If you guys wouldn't mind, please make sure that you have your mics muted and feel free to turn your cameras off. As I mentioned earlier, I'm very easily distracted, so that would help me out too. Let me go over kind of a little bit of the format of this session. So obviously, I want to thank all of you for not just joining, but submitting a fantastic set of questions beforehand. So when you registered, we had where you could submit questions that you had on your mind, and you guys did excellent. You made my job very easy. So what I've done is I've taken those pre-submitted questions and there's a lot of common themes, a lot of common topics that were brought up. So I put together several slides that cover not just the individual questions that were asked, but also dive into a lot of the questions that I find most parents of admitted students and students themselves have at this stage of the game. So I'm going to go ahead and cover quite a bit of material. So if you're a bit surprised that there's so much me talking at you in a parent Q&A, don't worry. We're going to open it up to the end for a more interactive portion of it. And also feel free to utilize the chat during this session. Like I said, I will have some material that I find will answer a lot of the questions that you may have. It may even spawn some questions you didn't realize that you had. So feel free to use the chat. I find that works best in voice in a large group. And then at the end, we'll open it up for some more interactive Q&A. And also, I will have my contact information up here shortly. So feel free to copy that down, take a screenshot. And like I said, this will be recorded. So we will go ahead and I will share the screen. And if you do ask a question in the chat and I don't answer it immediately, don't worry. I'm not just biding time for me to figure out the answer. It could be because the answer is coming up in another slide that I'm going to be addressing, or there may just be a better time to address that in some chunk. But if you get to the end and I have left you hanging on a question, feel free to re-ask because there is a good chance that I will just miss it by chance. Let me go ahead and we will share the screen here and get things started. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to cover a variety of topics, everything from housing to dining to scholarship information to next steps. But I'm going to start by talking about my single favorite thing about campus to discuss. And that's me. Anyway, my name is Justin Rawls. I'm the Assistant Director of Transfer Recruiting. Of special interest to any of you that happen to have transfer students or be a transfer student yourself, I stare at course equivalency databases so you don't have to. Also, if you have any questions about dual enrollment courses, which there were some, and also AP credits, which there were some as well, I'm definitely the guy to answer those questions. Like I said, make sure you take down my information. Inevitably, in a session like this, there will be questions that I just am not able to get to, or maybe the question that you have is a little bit more personal or but involving a specific circumstance. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly. I am happy to help. So just to go over some basic overall information about me, I'm a Rolla native, graduated Rolla High School class of 2000. That's easy math. You know how old I am now. I attended here back when it was University of Missouri Rolla, so I have all the old swag. And when I was a student here, I participated in marching band, concert band, jazz band, pep band. There was a bit of a theme there. I went all in band geek and I don't regret it. I also participated in fraternity life and was also a member of KMNR, the campus's commercial-free, free format radio station, keeping Rolla weird since 1970. Just some information to remind you that why we are one of the best institutions for your student to be considering. We're the #1 public university in Missouri for return on investment, that what your student stands to be making compared to what they put into the cost of education. #1 best college in Missouri and #5 in the entire US for engineering majors. #1 best value public university in Missouri and #6 in the US. #3 best public university for career placement. #9 for internships. New York Times rated us one of the nation's top 10 high value institutions, and Wall Street Journal says that we are the #1 public university degree that makes a salary impact. So one of the most consistent questions that we asked are, what are the next steps? What do we need to make sure that we're not missing out on? So I've kind of highlighted my personal soapbox of things to make sure that you and your student are on top of. So if your student has been admitted, You want to make sure that they're logging into their portal at apply.mst.edu and actually viewing the decision letter there in their status page. Granted, if you've opened a letter that you received in the mail, you do know from your admissions packet that your student was admitted. However, going into the portal is an important step because it generates their next steps checklist. So make sure you're doing that. Now, when you look at the checklist, a variety of things stand out. One of the most important steps is having your student set up their JOES account. That is the internal system that we at Missouri S&T use for all of our students. And it's also their student email account. So when the student sets that up, the number one mistake that I see students make is they set up their campus email account and then they never log back in to check it ever again until the semester starts. Make sure your student is logging into their at mst.edu email address because a lot of starting semester information will be coming specifically to that email address. So there's a lot of important information that will be now directed instead of your student's personal or you as a parent email account right to that at mst.edu email account. Now, when your student first sets up their JOES account, another common mistake is it will tell you to sign in with their username, which is available on their status page and also the decision letter that you guys received at umsystem.edu. It states to do that, but it's one of those things that's easy to overlook. So oftentimes if students or parents are having trouble logging in and setting up that email account, that JOES account the first time, it's because they're not using the at umsystem.edu. Another thing that is very important. Now, this is a great next step, even if you are understandably still in the decision-making stage. That's signing up for advising and registration. So advising and registration is when your student will sit down with their faculty advisor for their department and actually get enrolled for courses. Now, you don't have to worry if when you look at the calendar and the dates that are available, if you don't see one that's going to work with your schedule. Students can and will be enrolled right before classes start. There will be students that get enrolled the day classes start. So the main thing that I recommend is signing up for the earliest advising and registration sessions you can. Even like I said, if you're still in the decision making phase, and also even if you don't know if you can make that date, because those dates are filling up quickly. And when you look on the status page at the advising and registration link, which I have a sample page pulled up here, when you click on that, you'll also see that there are some virtual options coming up as well. And I'll kind of go over what that looks like in a little bit. But that's basically where they get the same information presented by me that they would get when attending an advising registration session, and then are paired up and they schedule time with their advisor one-on-one to get their schedule set up. So for people that are not unable to make it here to campus for one of the in-person sessions, those are a great option. But like I said, it's important to sign up for the earliest session possible because it's easier to move to one of those later dates than to find out you're left with the Friday before classes start. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the most popular session for a reason. And your student will get enrolled for classes, but maybe not at the days and times that work best for them. Waiting until the Friday before classes started is how I ended up with a Monday morning 8 a.m. Calc 2 class taught by former astronaut Tom Akers, who didn't care that I didn't wake up early enough to scrape my windshield. So locking that down is a great thing to go ahead and do. Now, if you haven't started the housing process, that is also a great thing to make sure you're getting the ball rolling on. There is the housing interest form, which is your first step to fill out. And then there's also the housing plan indicator. So there's two housing forms. The interest form lets them know that, hey, I'm interested in having housing on campus. And then the other one is kind of the next step where you kind of select the options that you want and get that process really rolling. Now, I do want to highlight that April 1st is the next priority housing deadline. That does not mean that that's the last chance to sign up for housing. It does not mean that by a long shot. However, the next round of housing offers will go out starting April 7th. So if you go ahead and make sure that your student completes the housing forms prior to April 1st, then you can still get in on the next round of housing offers. That does include paying your enrollment fee. So make sure that you have those boxes checked so that if you want to be in the next round of priority housing, you're good to go by April 7th, which is when those will come out. So the deadline for that next round, not the final round, is April 1st. When it comes to housing, I will go over here in a little bit about what the process looks like. But your students, when it comes to housing, it is a first come, first served basis. The earlier you start the housing process, pay your enrollment fee, and complete all the forms involved with that, the more likely your student is going to get the housing options that they rate as their top choices, not just the specific residence hall, but even room selection as well. And then also a lot of questions about FAFSA. Now, on your checklist, some of you may still have FAFSA as a red X. That does not necessarily mean that things are behind or that you are in bad shape when it comes to financial aid. That simply means that we have not received your student's specific FAFSA information from the government. One thing that I would highly recommend for anyone that has any questions at all regarding the financial side of things is when your student logs into their portal at apply.mst.edu, you will see on their status page a picture of one of us admissions counselors and our contact information. Right below that is your student's assigned student financial services counselor. Now, I find that a lot of parents and students do a great, excellent job of reaching out to us in admissions. However, I feel like the student financial services counselors are sometimes missed when it comes to people to be in regular contact with. Because not only are they there to help you making sure that you're in a good spot in terms of FAFSA, they're also there to help explain student loans. They're also there to help explain and make sure you're not leaving any money on the table when it comes to financial aid, scholarships, grants, things of that nature. Student Financial Services also, if you go to visit.mst.edu, they have some virtual sessions coming up, similar to this, but them pouring over in painstaking detail the financial side of things. But never hesitate to reach out to them and set up a virtual over the phone or one-on-one session. If you do happen to be on campus for an event like a daily visit, a Discover Day, something like that, they are always happy for walk-ins as well. One of the other most common questions was about housing and dining. So I'm going to go into quite a bit of detail that I have arranged here to cover several questions that we had about that. reslife.mst.edu is your go-to site for everything residential life. Even the email address, reslife@mst.edu, is a fantastic way just to make contact, even if you have a simple question, because there are no silly questions, to reach out to ResLife about. When it comes to the housing policy, students are required to live in the dormitory the first 2 years or 4 semesters of college. There are some things that apply for an exemption. For instance, if a student has family within a 60-mile radius, if a student has a specific requirement that housing is not able to accommodate, if a student is specifically transfer students going to be 21 or is already 21 by the time the semester starts, they're able to be exempt. And if a student has completed 60 hours of post high school college level credit, they are also exempt from the housing requirement. I would like to highlight that 60 hours of post high school credit. So the only credit that counts is credit that is earned after the date of high school graduation. Now, the other exemption options that students can fall under are being married or having children. I do not recommend doing those two things just to get an apartment in Rolla. You can always fill out the exemption form if you feel like your student should qualify in your belief. I always say, for instance, I will talk to transfer students when it comes to being close to that 60 credit hours. Go ahead and fill out the exemption form. I always say it's better to request an exemption than just assume you don't apply for one. So make sure you visit reslife.mst.edu. Meal plan options. So when you look at the meal plan options, they are kind of divided up into two main categories. There's your traditional meal swipe options and then your declining balance dollars. So the traditional meal swipe is what, for instance, I would be familiar with when it comes to a traditional kind of buffet style cafeteria. One swipe is one entry into the cafeteria or one meal. Now, meal swipes can be used at any of the venues in the food court located in Havener. Another common mistake that I see a lot of students make is that they have meal swipes and they don't realize that absolutely, yes, you can use that in the food court. You don't exclusively have to use them in the traditional style cafeteria. So, for instance, when you go to the food court and go to Burger 573 or Chick fil A or Build Pizza, you'll find out that all of them have combos on the menu. And so you are able to, by using the meal swipe options, um, one meal swipe is one combo. So, for instance, the declining balance dollars are a different kind of setup. That's basically money on your student's card so that they are able to use that to purchase food. So, when it comes to the meals, a student cannot use their meal swipe to go to Chick-fil-A and get a 60-piece nugget meal. However, if they've got the declining balance dollars on their card, they absolutely can do that. So the declining balance dollars, those are placed on the student's account, and you are able to add additionally to them through the online system, through the app. Anyone's able to add to that at any time. Also, when it comes to the declining balance dollars, you can use those at other venues that you can't use the meal swipes on. For instance, there are convenience stores, automated convenience stores located in Havener, all of the residence halls, and even some off-campus dining options. So you are able to use those at those facilities. For instance, Papa John's is a good example that I use of a venue that students are able to use their declining balance dollars at. Now, another question that was asked is, why would I use declining balance dollars when my student could just pay with debit or credit card? Fantastic question. I'm glad you asked. And it really is up to your preference. You do get kind of a cash conversion when it comes to the dollars that you pay, and then what that amounts to on the declining balance dollars. The conversion rate slightly comes out in your favor. And there's also no sales tax. That's the main thing that I highlight. I find from the student panels that I've been involved in and just the day-to-day talking to students, most students go with a combination of meal swipes or the declining balance dollars. Now, specific to Thomas Jefferson Hall, and I will go over kind of the residence halls coming up shortly. Thomas Jefferson Hall has the more traditional style cafeteria, one of the more popular dining options on campus. Now, students that are living in Thomas Jefferson Hall specifically have access to an unlimited meal plan that students that are not living in Thomas Jefferson Hall do not have access to. So it is unlimited. The advantage is it is unlimited. The downside is your student better be committing to eating in Thomas Jefferson Hall quite a bit. Now, students that have the declining balance dollars can actually redeem those at Thomas Jefferson Hall to get into the cafeteria there. So you can access that even if you don't have the meal swipe options. Students do have 2 weeks after the semester starts to make any changes to their meal plans. So you're not quite locked in when the semester starts. It really just does depend on how your student is going to eat when they arrive, and what kind of options you're looking at. A very good question about what is Missouri S&T doing to improve their dining. As a student that was here in 2000, I can say that I am consistently impressed with the leaps and bounds improvements that are made to our dining facilities, especially the food court in Havener, which is continually upgraded and with different options based on student feedback. Every venue that exists, any venue that they have gotten rid of, has been updated based on feedback from students. Same thing with Thomas Jefferson Hall. While there's always room for improvement, Thomas Jefferson Hall really prides themselves on adapting quickly to needs of their students and feedback that way as well. And our dining services has been amazing at accommodating students. You can always reach out to them if your student has a specific need. And then dineoncampus.com/MST, you'll be able to get not just the breakdown of the different dining halls, the different food options on campus, but also daily menus. So it'll show what is being served for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and it'll also have a breakdown of ingredients and also any allergens of note. So I always make sure that students highlight that. When it comes to the, Robbie, you're talking about the unlimited meal plan, that is exclusively available for students that reside in Thomas Jefferson Hall. Students not living in Thomas Jefferson Hall can dine there on their regular meal swipe or declining balance dollar plans as well. So we had a lot of questions about wanting more information about housing, and I'm here to provide it. So when it comes to our residence halls, incoming freshmen or first-time college students have access to Residential Commons 1 and 2, Thomas Jefferson Hall, and University Commons. We also have Minor Village and Raleigh Suites, which are upperclassmen only facilities, and I'll kind of go over those in more detail next. Once again, reslife.mst.edu is an amazing resource for informations about the different residence halls, the pricing structure and breakdown, especially because in places like Residential Commons, University Commons, and even Thomas Jefferson Hall with different number of room assignments, you're able to kind of weigh those options there as well when your students completing their housing form and making their preferences. And then also, if you want actual specs on the rooms, well, we're a university known for architectural engineering. So if there's details that you want about the room, we have schematics that break down minute details. So if you really need to know how deep the left-hand desk drawer is in University Commons, it's on the website there in the plans. We also have 20 plus fraternities and sororities, and our Christians campus houses do count as on-campus housing as well. So I'll start by covering Thomas Jefferson Hall. Once again, reslife.mst.edu. They have not just the actual floor plans and measurements, but they have virtual walkthroughs of not just the different dorms, but the different dorm setups for places like residential commons and university commons would have different room options. So with Thomas Jefferson Hall, it is the more traditional style dorm setup. It's what I would be familiar with. I always tell students, if you imagine in your head what you think a dorm room looks like, that is what the traditional dorm setup is. So it is also available for 3-person to a room, 2 people to a room, which is the most common, and it is the most affordable single room option when it comes to campus living. Me personally, my first semester, I had a roommate, and I would not have changed that experience for the world, but I did change it my second semester. I had got a room to myself, and you know what, to each their own. Thomas Jefferson Hall also does have community bathrooms, so the floors are divided by gender. And now when I say community bathrooms, then a lot of people clench up when I say that. However, now that I'm a parent, I better appreciate the fact that the bathrooms are cleaned twice a day and always restocked. So they are split up based on floors because of the community bathrooms located on each floor. It's accessible to campus by an underground walkway just north of computer science. And it is, fun fact, the tallest building in Rolla. Residential Commons 1 and 2, they are the most probably popular for both underclassmen and upperclassmen. So it's suite style. So here, for instance, is a picture of the double deluxe suite. There are other suite options available. With Residential Commons, you have 1 full bath and 1 half bath. And then you have kind of the shared living space there in the middle. Some of the options don't have as much because the non-deluxe suites don't have that same living area in the center. Residential Commons 1 and 2, they are both identical, and they are connected to campus with an underground walkway underneath 63. When it comes to a single room, either in Thomas Jefferson or any of the other facilities, for instance, Residential Commons 1 and 2, and same thing with University Commons, the suite style setup. The one pictured shows 2 people in one of the bedrooms. However, Residential Commons and University Commons both have, and I believe I got on the next slide, showing the single occupancy bedrooms. However, all the suites are going to be shared space. With Thomas Jefferson Hall, in most cases, I've rarely heard of a student that has applied for a single room that hasn't been able to get it, especially because worst case scenario, you can be put on a wait list. And as it gets closer to camp classes starting, oftentimes there are changes that happen. And then also to go back to a question about freshmen living in a fraternity or sorority, absolutely. So I'll talk about that a little bit more next because the little asterisks that I like to put with that. So really, if your priority is to make sure that your student gets a specific dormitory or a specific room type, the earlier you start that housing process, the more likely you are able to get those first choices. University Commons, they are the newest of the dorm facilities and on the top end of the price point. Like I said, you can go to reslife.mst.edu to see the breakdown, but here you see the 4-person apartment style setup. So you have the shared living space, and then each student has their own actual bedroom. So there's a little bit more space within that space. This one, the 4-person apartment, shows the individual bedrooms. There is that shared living space, and University Commons does have a kitchen located in the room. Residential Commons has a common kitchen located on each floor. And then University Commons has 2 full baths instead of the full bath, half bath setup that Residential Commons have. And when it comes to upperclassmen, there's Minor Village. It is the furthest dormitory from a campus, still entirely walkable through the pedestrian walkway over I-44. And then there's also a shuttle that runs from Minor Village to the Innovation Lab Circle Drive, and then also the physics building to cover both ends of campus. I always tell students while it does run regularly, if you're in a hurry, don't count on it because you never know how busy they've been that day. Minor Village is more kind of a two-bedroom apartment style setup, and then Rala Suites is the closest residential facility to campus, actually closer than my office, and it is single-room efficiency apartments. Okay, quite a few questions about finances and scholarships. Like I said, your best resource will be Student Financial Services, and you can find your students' individual accounts are located on their portal at apply.mst.edu. However, your cheat sheet is scholarships.mst.edu. After your student has created their Joe's account, you can log into scholarships.mst.edu, and it'll let you know any scholarships that your student could be in consideration for. It'll show you anything automatic, anything merit-based, anything competitive that has to be applied for. It'll show you anything department specific, and there's a series of questions that your student can answer. It is optional and voluntary. The more questions your student answers, the more potential restricted scholarships could open up. For instance, Sean, one of our student ambassadors in the Visit Center, said he was going to see exactly where the end of the questions was. So he continued on until he reached question 412, and then he got bored. He did unlock money that he didn't know was available to him. So I always tell students, most people log into scholarships.mst.edu before their freshman year. It's a missed opportunity to not check scholarships.mst.edu every semester, every year, because you never know what changes as far as scholarships that are being offered, especially at the departmental level, and especially based on your situation, what could change from there. Now, for the tuition, we do have a tiered tuition structure, meaning that students pay based on what their actual major is. Now, hopefully you've had a chance to look at this on our website. I'll cover a little bit, but there's a brilliant cost calculator that's located on our website, futurestudents.mst.edu/costs. You put in your specific information, and then it's going to show you before any financial aid is applied what your tuition would on average be. The main thing that I want to talk about when I highlight the tuition is that freshman rate, because the freshman rate is lower than obviously the engineering, computing, the tier two laboratory sciences, business, information science and technology, economics, engineering, management. I don't know why I chose to read all those, but I did. It is lower than that. But a lot of students are coming in with college level credit, not just through AP, but for dual enrollment credit and things like that. So students may not be a college level freshman credit wise, despite being a first time college student. However, all students are guaranteed that freshman rate. All incoming first time college students are guaranteed that freshman rate for at least their first semester. I have had, however, parents be surprised at that second semester when the student then qualifies for their actual degree tier. So keep that in mind, because at semester, if your student, for instance, is coming in with an associate's degree, which we see more commonly nowadays, once they get past that first semester, then they may be bumped up to that tier three engineering and computing rate, depending on their major. So be aware of that. When it comes down to the cost of attendance, this shows based on that first time college or freshman rate for Missouri residents and out of state and international residents. Once again, what I highly recommend doing is reaching out to your student financial services counselor and also visiting futurestudents.mst.edu/costs so that you can actually use that cost calculator to see where you fall. That combined with scholarships.mst.edu can help you see automatically kind of where you're going to fall. And then your financial aid letter can help iron that out as well. And we have a lot of student financial service events coming up. Now, when it comes to books and supplies and housing and dining, that is all based on an average of students that were surveyed that participate in housing and dining and purchasing books and supplies from campus. Now, When it comes to your actual statements, statements are generated on around the 15th of each month and are then due the 10th of the following month. So your first statement will be generated July 15th. So be aware of that. Then anticipated aid amounts are subtracted from the total cost of the semester before you're billed. Now, when it comes to the actual paying of that, you're able to reach out to our cashier's office, which is part of Student Financial Services. You're able to pay in full or use the minimum payment installment option, which is going to split up the remaining semester balance into 4 payments. There is a 1% finance charge applied to any balance and carried forward. Also, on the cashier's website, you can see a breakdown of what that tuition statement is going to look like to help walk you through that, including videos explaining what everything that you're seeing is. And once again, our Student Financial Services office is brilliant at helping you go over that in detail, and then helping you look at adoptions for what your next steps can be from there. And I did want to cover some scholarship information. So there are 2 new scholarships that I wanted to bring up. One is the Solving for Tomorrow scholarship. Now, at this point in the calendar year, a lot of these scholarships had steps that needed to be taken care of to make sure that your student is in line to get those. However, I want to make sure that I cover everything so that parents of students that may have qualified for these understand what that would be looking like on their financial aid offer. So the Solving for Tomorrow scholarship, it required you to file FAFSA by February 1st. That is the only actual date requirement with that one, and it's renewable for 4 years of filing that FAFSA by February 1st of each year. You can see the qualifications for that: an average gross income of Missouri residents of less than $70,000, and you see the ACT or SAT score required for that as well. There's also the Trailblazer Scholarship for incoming freshmen for fall 2025 if your student is identified as a first generation college student, and that one is renewable as long as the student maintains a 2.75 GPA. Now, when it comes to first-time college students, the Groundbreaker Scholarship, as they're commonly called, are one of the most common automatic scholarships that students will see. Now, this does not require any special application. So your student, if they qualify for it, would have received information or will receive information when they receive their financial aid offer. A first gen student would be they are the first member of their family to actually attend college. So, for instance, if either parent in the home has not completed a 4-year bachelor's degree, then technically that would be considered a first generation college student. First generation college student would be someone that didn't have a parent in the home that would be able to help them through the college process. If you have more questions about first gen, you can feel free to reach out to admissions at mst.edu, or you'd be able to reach out to your specific admissions counselor located on your student's portal. Very good question about residency. I'm going to bring that up here in a minute. Don't let me forget that, Jennifer, because that's a good thing to discuss. When you're looking over the qualifications for the Groundbreaker Scholarship, you see the, yes, Jake. And then the first time college merit-based scholarships for Missouri residents and out-of-state residents. So it's based on a combination of the student's cumulative GPA and then the ACT, SAT scores. However, if the student applied test optional, which was submitting a series of essays instead of submitting test scores, then they are still able to qualify for this. It's just based on the results of the scoring on those essays that they submitted. And they are able to be upgraded. So another common question is what happens if the student's information retake the ACT, SAT? What happens if the GPA goes up by graduation? Very good question. Your student is able to update all of that through June before the semester starts. So for instance, any changes to your student's GPA, any changes to the ACT, SAT scores, if they're retaken, will only help your students. We're not going to take away the financial aid that was offered. However, you can increase that based on a change in scores. So if a student retakes the ACT, retakes the SAT, we do a super score. So it never hurts your students to retake those ACT or SAT tests. So for instance, if a student takes the ACT, they have a cumulative score, their composite score, and let's say they did great in math but did terrible in English. They retake it. This time they do amazing in English and they do poor in math. We're only going to change the score that went up, which will improve their composite score. And you're able to update those all the way, like I said, through June. And then the first time college merit-based scholarship, the Groundbreaker Scholarship, that's renewable for 4 years with a 3.0 cumulative GPA. There was also a question about what if your student bobbles a semester? What if for one semester, is it just that, is it gone and done and that's the end of the story? Your student has one kind of pause semester. So if they lose the Groundbreaker Scholarship based on their GPA one semester, if they're able to improve that GPA back up to above a 3.0 at the conclusion of this semester where they have lost the scholarship, it can be reinstated. So they get one kind of break on that if they fall below that 3.0 for one semester. So the Groundbreaker Scholarship is only for incoming first-time college students or freshmen. There are some transfer scholarships that I will be going over next, and that you can also find out on our website as well, but I will cover those coming up. We have both the Transfer Merit Scholarship and the Partners in Excellence Scholarship, as well as a couple of others that come into play too. Now, if your students live in counties that border the state of Missouri, very good call out. I apologize. The Trailblazer Scholarship, the deadline was March 1st on that. So I apologize that I didn't have my dates rattling around in my head correctly. So the Trailblazer Scholarship, if your student did apply as a first generation college student before that time, then they would be eligible for that. And is renewable with the 2.75 GPA, which is the main thing that I wanted to get across there. So students living in counties that border the state of Missouri, there is a 100% waiver for out-of-state tuition, renewable with a 3.0 cumulative GPA. When it comes to the way that looks on your tuition statement, I do like to highlight, you are not an in-state student because you're getting the out-of-state tuition waiver. So your student is still charged the out-of-state tuition, and then that amount is adjusted to bring it in line to what it would be if they were an in-state student. Students that qualify for the Border County Award or the Connection Award that I'll talk about next do not get to stack that award with the Groundbreaker Scholarship on the previous slide. However, there is the Border County Extra Award. So if your student lives in the Border County and also has an ACT score of 28 or higher, or an SAT of 1300 higher, then there's an extra financial award based on what their performance was on that. The S&T Connection Award is for residents of Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Same setup. So your student is still charged the out-of-state tuition, but a waiver is applied to bring it in line to what it would be if they were an in-state student. If your student happened to be a National Merit semifinalist in the National Merit Scholarship, once again, that is a scholarship that is completely independent of Missouri S&T. But if your student did make it to the semifinalist stage, then we do have an award for them, including a $12,000 scholarship per year, first year on-campus housing up to $7,000, and a scholarship to the S&T store for technology and books. Now, the next two scholarships that I'm about to discuss, I am discussing those because the deadline to apply has passed, but there's another step for those of you, because I looked and there are some of you whose students did qualify, and I want to make sure that you're aware of the deadline. And this is one opportunity for me to hammer this into your head to make sure your student is checking. The Cummer Vanguard Scholars, if your student was did receive an offer to join the Cummer Vanguard Scholars Program, this one did require an application, and that application date has closed. However, if your student has received the offer to join the Cummer Vanguard Scholars Program, the acceptance deadline is April 15th for the second round. There are no extensions on that. So if your student received an email that they have been accepted into the Cummer Vanguard program, please make sure that they accept by April 15th. That involves paying your enrollment fee and then also signing up for advising and registration and making sure that you're clicking that link to make sure that in the email to make sure that you have accepted that. Same thing goes with the Honors Academy. So if your student received an invitation for the Honors Academy, the deadlines to receive those have already passed. But if your student did receive it, they have until April 15th to sign up for advising and registration and pay your enrollment fee. For the Honors Academy, make sure you check that email, but signing up for advising and registration, paying that enrollment fee, that's what you need to do to make sure that you've taken care of that. I see every semester students that were hoping to get into one of both of those and then never do the next step to actually accept that invitation. Also, if your student took Project Lead the Way courses, there were a couple questions about this. Make sure you visit our Project Lead the Way page on our website. You can just search PLTW on our website to find out about that. The scholarships, that part has already passed, but you do need to fill out paperwork if you want that Project Lead the Way courses that qualify transferred over. So make sure you don't miss that step if you do have credits from Project Lead the Way to come our way. For transfer students, we have the Transfer Merit Scholarship and also the Partners in Excellence Scholarship. If your transfer student is a member of Phi Theta Kappa and indicated so, then there's additional one-time Phi Theta Kappa scholarship as well. And then also the out-of-state awards for Border County and for Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma are similar as well. For international students, we do have the Provost International Scholarship. Once again, scholarships.mst.edu to check your qualifications for that. All of these for transfer students are automatic. So there were a variety of questions covering the gambit from what kind of different resources available. So I put a list that covers all of the resources that I was specifically asked about and a couple that I feel like is good for us to discuss just to make you aware. So advising and registration is something that I mentioned before, which should be your next step for students, even as I said, if you're still in the decision-making stage. So our advising center is here to help students, and that is who your student will meet with. As a current employee of the university and a former student, one thing that has always stood out to me is the fact that the advisor for your student is not just some random person in an office like myself that just happens to have a course catalog. It's faculty in that department, people that know the curriculum because they teach and in a lot of cases design the curriculum. And a common misstep that I feel that students make is their very first semester when they go to their advising and registration session, they meet with their advisor because it's required and they plan out their courses for that semester. The next semester, they're given the option to log into their JOES system and enroll for courses themselves using the course catalog. And a lot of students do that for convenience sake. I feel that's a missed opportunity because your student's advisor is there for them for the long haul. So they are there for that student in anything that they may need. If your student wants to consider changing majors, wants to do a dual major, wants to do a major minor combination, if they're looking to start grad school early with the 4+1 program, that advisor is there to help with that. So always, as a parent, encourage your student to stay in contact with their advisor and maybe go to them when it's time to enroll for courses. Counseling services. I had a question about that. Student well-being is located on the second floor of Norwood Hall. Student well-being has programs for absolutely anything that your student could be going through, not just academically, but personally. Everything from tobacco cessation to drinking problem and addiction help, and just women's health wellness, things like that that your student may need some assistance with. We have 24/7 access to licensed counselors, and students have the ability to talk to a trained student if they are more comfortable doing that. We also have the Minor Oasis in Norwood Hall, where students are able to kind of take some time to themselves and have a relaxation moment. And then also there is the UCare report system. You can find that on our website. That's available for all students, faculty, staff, parents, anyone to submit an anonymous report to student well-being that, hey, this person on campus may need someone to check in on them, may need a little bit of additional help, or just to be offered some resources that they may be too proud to ask for. Also, our IT help desk, I'm going to talk about that in a lot of detail next because you guys had some great questions about technology on campus. Student diversity initiative, the engagement and inclusion house, they have, for instance, a food pantry, a clothing closet, access to 24/7 tutoring on campus. So if your student needs help with tutoring at 3 a.m., which I hope it doesn't come to that, but we have access and available resources for that. Our student health center, with our student health center located on 10th Street, right across from the Gail Bullman, it is a fully functional general practitioner's doctor's office. And I find that not enough parents and students realize that their student can just go there. There's no need to go if it's during office hours. There's no need for some minor things, illness, like I said, women's health and wellness, also sports injury medicine. They do blood work. They do lab testing and results. So anything that you'd go to your general practitioner doctor for, your student is able to do as a student at the Student Health Center. One example I like to highlight is specifically this time of year. they are absolutely packed. It is all hands on deck because we have students from all across the nation and all around the globe. And not all of them have experienced pollen in the Ozarks. And when allergy season hits, student health services, like I said, they cover the gambit for what they take care of. They have care packages put together for students that have never experienced allergies before. If they need to refer a student to a specialist, if they need to escalate them to Phelps Health, which is right down the road, they're able to take care of that for you as well. Also, on the student health website, you're able to submit forms and inoculation records or request waivers for those before your student moves into any residence hall. Also, Student Veterans Resource Center. Harris Hall is the home of both the ROTC for Army and Air Force. And there's several people that I can recommend is a great point of contact for anyone with questions about military benefits. Rod Henderson is a fantastic resource. He's located in the registrar's office. If you would like contact information for anything regarding military benefits and assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly and I can provide you that contact information. Before things end, I will put my contact information again on the screen and into the chat. And so, like I said, those cover some of the resources that we had questions about going in. Another hot topic of yes, Jeff, he's fantastic. When it comes to IT help and assistance, we had a ton of questions about technology. So some things that I'd like to cover to address those questions. We are a majority Windows PC campus. Now, that being said, we have plenty of students, faculty, and staff that get by their entire time here with Apple products. It's not like back in my day where the specs of a computer were absolutely vital to be able to do so much. Everything is so cloud-based and network-oriented and shared drive based that you'll find the technology isn't quite as vital as it used to be back in the day. So Apple computers do work just fine. And students that have a particular type of computer and may need something specific for an assignment or a lab that they're working on, there are computer labs located in every building on campus. When it comes to um, kind of what to look for when purchasing technology for campus. Obviously, I'm going to put in plug for the sntstore.com. That is our bookstore on campus. But what I have found is that surprisingly to me as much as anyone, the markup is almost non-existent on computer products at our bookstore. They're competitive, and I promise you, I'm a frugal man and I shop around. However, if nothing else, the bookstore and what they offer both on the website and in the actual bookstore gives you a great jumping off point of specs to look for, kind of a range of things, because they have things kind of set up in good, better, best when it comes to technology. You can look those over and then do your own independent shopping, but you can trust what they're recommending or what they're selling is kind of in the ballpark of the technology that your student might need. Also, if your student does have a Dell computer that you purchase independently, but you purchase the Dell laptop warranty, our IT department located in the library can do claims on that Dell laptop warranty in-house. And then also, if you purchase a laptop, a Dell laptop from our bookstore and purchase the warranty, then it's covered by that as well. It covers all damage to the computer. Something else to remember, every semester I see students who arrive on campus with that shiny new copy of the Microsoft Office suite. Don't do that because all students get a copy of that included in the software they get from being a student on campus. That's already provided to you. Your students can log into it.mst.edu/services and get any software that they are provided by the university for download there. Like I said, including Microsoft Office as part of their Joe's account. And then also Apps Anywhere virtual desktops. There's a ton of software that students are given for free. So make sure you're checking before you make any software purchases. Some basic things that I like to hammer home just because it comes up every single year and is only getting worse is scam information. Your student should never give out their password or their banking info or anything to anyone under any circumstances. If your student is contacted by someone saying that they're IT and they want their username and password, your student should hang up and call IT directly because IT would never ask for that information because they definitely already have it. So make sure your student does not give out that information to anyone and make sure that they set up multi-factor authentication. That means they can log into their accounts from different locations as long as they have their phone handy. That makes sure there's no unwanted access to their accounts as well. And then also something that I would highlight is that from my personal experience, your student can save all of their information on their at mst.edu email account, but do know that email account will not last forever after they graduate. I used mine as a file cabinet to store all my important digital documents, and eventually it does go away. So do keep that in mind and make sure your student goes to safecomputing.mst.edu and make sure kind of examples of things to not click on that may come through. Some questions about campus safety and advice. Our campus has been rated the 14th safest campus in the nation. Police Chief Doug Roberts is former Secret Service. He is amazing. He's very intense about protecting the students, faculty, and staff on campus. Some things that I like to highlight. University PD wants to be engaged with all the students. They want to feel like that they are also part of this community because they are. Our University PD and our campus is located within 1 mile of a variety of different law enforcement options. So you have University PD located on campus. Just a few blocks down the road is the Rolla Police Department. And also we are located just down the street from Troop I of the Highway Patrol, and the Phelps County Sheriff's Department is located in around Rolla as well. Students can reach out to University PD for things that some students don't think about. Like I said, our university police does a great job of being members of the campus and making students here feel like they're part of this community, which they are. So if a student happens to be in a situation where they have run out of gas, they have a dead battery in their car, they have a flat tire, they've locked their keys in their car, they can call University PD and a University PD officer will be happy to come and assist them. Just the other day, I was at Walmart and there were some students that needed a jump, and University PD rolled out, even though that's outside of our purview, to help those students. There's also the Rave Guardian phone app. I recommend all students download the Rave Guardian app on their phone. It is one button push touch access to university dispatch, which, like I said, also covers the dispatch of the Rolla Police Department, the Phelps County Sheriff's Department, and the Troop I Highway Patrol. Students can use that to request an escort if they feel that that is necessary. They can also do what's called a virtual escort, where students can put in their information on the Rave Guardian app, put in their destination, state whether they're walking or driving, and it'll calculate about how long it should take the student to get there. If the student does not check in by the time that that app says they should have arrived, the phone will automatically notify University PD to do a wellness check on that student. And Chief Doug Roberts said that he would much rather do 1,000 false alarm checks on students than miss one student that may be in need. Also, something else that I like to highlight. So bikes, scooters, um, unicycles, oddly enough, skateboards, they are all extremely popular on campus. When it comes specifically to bicycles, we are an incredibly bike-friendly campus. Make sure that your student registers their bike. I learned this not that long ago, but bicycles have a serial number, and there's a registration that students can do so that if that bike is lost or stolen and someone recovers it, it actually gives some chance of that bike being recovered. So make sure that students, it's actually a database, but there's a link to it on the campus police site. So students can go there and actually get that as well. So make sure if your students bring a bike to campus, register that serial number. Student parking. We had some excellent questions about student parking. So student parking will open in the middle of July. So your students will want to make sure that they are checking the parking website, parking.mst.edu. Now, an oftentimes pain point when students are applying for parking is the immediate panic because it's going to tell your student that they were put on a wait list. Everybody's put on a wait list the moment they apply, and then they sort them out. With the way it goes, the parking permits are valid from August 1st until July 31st. Students that are joining or getting a parking pass at the winter break, they have a prorated amount, so they pay a discounted amount on that. But once again, it only goes until July 31st. So parking is allotted based on residence hall priority first. So any student that is living in a specific residence hall has priority at the parking in that residence facility. I can count on one hand the number of times I have recalled hearing about a student that lived in a residence hall did not get parking at that specific facility. When your student signs up, if they are living off campus or if they're looking, some students will do multiple parking passes. Coming up for the next year, they will actually have a universal parking pass option where your student could, for an increased amount, be able to park in any lot. So you can look for those options when the parking opens in July. Once again, it's first come, first serve, but students that are living at the residence halls get first choice. Yes, freshmen can get parking at the residence halls. So, like I said, when you submit, your student will want to, apply for the lot that they are living in. So, if they're living in Thomas Jefferson Hall, they'll want to apply for the parking lot located at Thomas Jefferson Hall. They will have priority access and they'll be bumped to the top of the list of people that are requesting parking passes there. Now, once the student has been processed, they will have 7 days once they receive their confirmation email to accept and pay for that parking pass. Once again, oftentimes, as I mentioned first thing, don't check their university email after setting it up. This is an example of sometimes how that can come back to haunt a student, because if they don't accept and pay for that parking pass, then they are moved back down to the bottom of that list, regardless of their priority status. So make sure the student keeps an eye on that. And then when it comes to another question that I had that I am actually an expert on is parking around campus. Can you exist if you are a transfer student, a commuting student, without a parking pass on campus? As a townie, I can tell you my experience. So my first semester, I decided to go without a parking pass, obviously, because I lived in the town of Rolla. We do have street parking options, though I will say at 8 a.m. in the morning, they are very limited because the students are trying to take advantage of those. We are also located just a few blocks from the public downtown lot. There are a few lots available downtown for just public civilian parking. Once again, in peak times, especially at the beginning of the day, those are harder to come by. There's also parking meters in all of the lots. That is not a great long-term solution because the amount that you would spend on a meter parking every single day, day in and day out, a parking pass would pay for itself. I believe for this past academic year is $180 for a year parking pass. Now, when you look at like I said, can you exist as an in-town student living off campus, driving to campus and parking, depending on your willingness to walk? You can. I got by okay my first semester, but I can tell you I bought a parking pass my second semester because I had a few too many ugly cries racing into campus trying to find a parking spot before that aforementioned Calc 2 8 a.m. Monday morning class. So to each their own. And then also, I do recommend students download the Park Mobile application because while our meters do accept debit and credit card, it is far easier in my experience to use that, as most students don't have change on them, as myself have run into that situation too. Now, I will say on here that this does mention the parking permits hanging in the rearview mirror. The parking department is looking to upgrade parking to be passless and to be based on the actual driver's license. I mean, not driver's license, license plate, of which if your student changes vehicles, they just need to make sure they log into their parking portal and update their license plate. But more information will be available to that when the parking portal opens come mid-July. If your student has any special accommodations, any reasonable accommodations, or things that we need to make sure that we are able to provide for them, if you're requesting a disability related accommodation, please make sure you reach out to Student Accessibility and Testing. So I have the website listed there, and their email and their phone number. So if it is anything to do with an accommodation, even this is my go-to. If you feel like, well, maybe I should reach out to student well-being for this issue, or maybe I should reach out to dining services. Your one-stop shop is to reach out to student disability accommodations at Student Accessibility and Testing. So even if it's not necessarily disability related, start with student accessibility and testing. So reach out to them to discuss that issue sooner rather than later, and also reach out during the semester if your student is not kind of reaching out to adapt or change any accommodations that are previously put in place or set up to make any adjustments that are needed. So we had a few questions about what kind of events and options do we have to kind of get more experience on campus, kind of prep for the coming semester, or even just if you haven't had the opportunity to visit campus. Before I go over the Pick the Mind slide that I have pulled up, I will say if you have not had the opportunity to visit campus, we still have a ton of options to do so. Visit.mst.edu, which is probably the link that you took to get registered for this. If you go to visit.mst.edu, we have daily visit options. Those are more kind of personal, kind of smaller uh, individual family visits. They're on the shorter scale so that you're able to get that tour of campus, meet with the department of your choosing, speak with admissions. We also have Discover Days coming up. Those are longer form, kind of 8 until 3 o'clock events. We're able to see multiple departments, take tours of the residence halls, be able to go over to the student design center and check out what the different design teams that they have available, and have more kind of time with student financial services, things like that. So make sure you check out visit.mst.edu, not just for those in-person visit events, but also other virtual events that we have coming up as well. And for admitted students, we have an event coming up shortly. That's April 5th. It's called Pick the Mind. It is specifically designed for students that want to go over next steps and talk about resources that they may need. It's a great opportunity to visit with Student Financial Services, um, find out information about depositing, signing up for advising and registration. We'll have different resources available during the day. So there's a QR code, and I also have the website on there. You can actually go to that site and see what the full agenda for this admitted student event looks like. You still have time to sign up. Obviously, we're getting close to the cutoff from that, but you still have the ability to sign up for this admitted student event. And then we also, over the summer, have Minor Welcome Bash. I do like to highlight that each one of them is the same. Sometimes we have had students that have signed up for both of the two Minor Welcome Bash events. They're the same event. So, I mean, if you enjoy it that much that you want to go back again, more power to you. So sign up is live. You can secure your spot. There are activities for students, and there's also design and builds. Your students will sign up for a different kind of group project that they'll do during the day. There's also going to be the reveal of the opening week theme this year. I know what it is, and I desperately want to tell you, but I won't because I'll get in so much trouble, especially because this is recorded. They'll tie it back to me. So you can sign up for those. Also at Minor Welcome Bash, we have things for the parents as well. So we have a variety of different sessions that you can kind of pick and choose what's more important. So there may be a presentation from the Global Engineering Program, Study Abroad, Crossing the T and Transfer, hosted by me, Justin Rawls. You can kind of pick and choose what is most important to you during that time. And so you can sign up for that at pro.mst.edu. I do realize we're at time. I'm incredibly long-winded though, and I'm going to keep talking as long as you guys need me. And if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and submit those as well. I do have some helpful links that I'm going to go over. Virtual Pick the Mind, there is nothing virtual available for virtual Pick the Mind. So Pick the Mind is an in-person event. Very good question. I'm glad you let me call that out. So I mentioned reslife.mst.edu, also parking.mst.edu. A couple of the links that we talked about. The dineoncampus.com/MST is incredibly useful. It's not the easiest to remember link, so I always like to toss that up there as well. And then also updating transcripts. If you have updated transcripts and making sure you get your final official transcripts to us. When it comes to dual enrollment, dual credit courses that your students may have taken from a community college or another college during high school, it's important to make sure that we get those transcripts. We can't transfer them over if we don't know they exist. In my experience, dual credit courses, dual enrollment courses that students take, um, specifically, I am most familiar with community colleges and local institutions in the Missouri area. We rarely see an issue with those being transferred over. When it comes to different out-of-state colleges, while I know more than most, I can always look that up on the course equivalency database that we have to let you know. But in my experience, community college transcripts for those courses, it's mainly knowing what they transfer over as. And once again, like I said, I'm the Assistant Director of Transfer Admissions. Reach out to me directly. I'll put my contact information again up here, and I will have it at the end of the session too. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to me by email if you have any questions that I don't cover. Don't worry, I'm not done talking. And then we can also feel free to utilize the chat while I go over these most helpful links. Some other notable inquiries that were brought up on the questions, A&R advice. That's where, especially if your student took college level credit in high school, make sure that we have at least an unofficial copy of that before they attend advising and registration so that their advisor knows what courses they potentially have completed they will be transferred over. Here's what it comes a question about timeline, and I apologize, it was asked earlier, but man, was I on a roll. There is no actual last date to determine that your student is coming to Missouri S&T. There's no this is your last chance to accept your offer to come to Missouri S&T. Basically, like you said, like I've gone over, there are some certain dates and timelines that will make that more stress-free for you as far as, like I said, that second priority housing deadline coming up on April 1st, some of the scholarships that have already passed. Those are the only kind of deadlines overall that we have. We will have students that apply to come here the week before classes start. We will have students that apply to come here the week classes start. So we can make that happen. It is not, in my opinion, from a stress perspective, ideal to submit your application for Missouri S&T the Friday before, but it happens every year. So in my opinion, the main deadlines are things that set your student up for success in terms of getting the housing that they're looking for, making sure they're getting parking in the locations that they need, and making sure that things like the honors and Comer Vanguard scholarship acceptance offers are handled as well. So there's no official deadline to make those decisions. Just be aware of other kind of timeline things, like I said, like housing. The longer you wait, the less likely your student is to get their top three choices. Also, question about fraternity and sorority life. Yes, so incoming freshmen are able to participate in and move into potentially fraternity and sorority houses. Now, this is what happens every semester. Parents and students will say, my son is very interested in this fraternity, or my daughter's interested in this sorority. So I don't want to fill out the housing application knowing that they're going to go to that fraternity and sorority. However, there is a bid rush process, and sometimes students are very, very convinced that they're going to be accepted into a fraternity or sorority, or that fraternity and sorority life is for them. And then that doesn't happen because there is that process to be accepted in the fraternity and sorority. My advice, in my opinion, is that even if your student is confident that they're going to pursue fraternity and sorority life, go ahead and lock down, fill out the housing information, because the last thing that you would want is at the last minute finding out your student doesn't have a place to stay. Now, most fraternities and sororities, they understand that incoming freshmen have a housing requirement, that they are living in a dorm, and there is a cancellation charge to then move out of said dorm. Fraternity and sorority houses do count as on campus housing, so you're still meeting that requirement. A lot of the fraternities and sororities already have a process in place to assist students when it comes to getting out of the dorm and then being into the fraternity and sorority house. It is not consistent across the board. They don't all do. However, that's something for you to find out from the specific fraternity or sorority your student may be interested in. So even if you think your student is interested in fraternity and sorority life, I still encourage you, in my opinion, to lock down housing, because you don't know if they're going to get in, to be blunt. So that is something that comes up every semester. But like I said, freshmen can get involved. It happens every year, and they most all of them have a process associated with that. When it comes to some of the other questions that I may not have been able to get to, uh, I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions that I haven't covered in painstaking detail. And also, once again, I do recommend using the chat. It's easier for me to stay focused and keep my thoughts in line. But if you do have any questions that you would like to unmute and ask, now is a good time. And like I said, I am here to take care of any questions that you have, and I will stay on as long as I can. This is recorded, like I said. Very good. That was the thing that I was going to come back to, and that's residency. Thanks for keeping me accountable, guys. So when it comes to establishing Missouri residency, the process stands that a student has to live in, has to be living in the state of Missouri for 12 consecutive months. Now, living in the dorms does count as Missouri residency there are some other things associated with being a resident of the state of Missouri. So you do have to have a Missouri address that you can verify for 12 months. That also means the student has to be able to prove that they stayed here over the summer. That is something that throws off a lot of people that are trying to establish that in-state residency. So keep in mind that if your student goes home for the summer, that's not 12 consecutive months. Students also have to be able to show that they are receiving bills or at least mail at the address. They have to be able to, utilities, for instance, is a great option, lease agreements or their dorm housing contract. And then also there has to be 12 months of banking transactions that occur in the state of Missouri. So that you have to be able to prove that the student was in Missouri for that 12 months and the bank account proves that there were transactions that happened in the state of Missouri. Also, when it comes to Missouri residency, the student has to make at least 3,000 net in income from the state from a business located in the state of Missouri. There's when it comes into remote work, there's different details about that. But being employed on campus qualifies for that as well. So when it comes to that residency requirement, check out reslife.mst.edu. There is a section on residency, and all universities in the state of Missouri are required to follow the same residency standard policy. But yeah, if you look on our ResLife page, there's some information about that because while it's pretty cut and dry, there's a lot of different ways that you can hit a hiccup there. And keep in mind, if your student is getting out of state scholarships and then transition to an in-state student, those scholarships drop away, but your student is not re-awarded in-state scholarships. So be very careful about whether or not it is a financial benefit, because I have had students that were receiving a very aggressive out-of-state scholarship package, really wanted to get that in-state tuition because it sounds like it's probably the best bet. But then you no longer get your out-of-state scholarships, and they do not re-award scholarships at that time because you're no longer a first-time college student. So there's a little bit of a wrinkle there too. When it comes to study abroad opportunities, great question, one I love to talk about. One of the biggest things that Missouri S&T brings to the table is the connections that we have globally. There's a reason we have the largest career fair in the entire Midwest. Because companies come from around the globe. And also we have connections around the globe. Our study abroad office likes to say they rarely get a request to study in a country that we don't already have a pre-existing relationship with. Now, specific to our College of Engineering and Computing, we have the Global Engineering Program. So students that are studying in engineering and computing have the option to take advantage of a kind of more refined program that takes place in either Ecuador, France, or Spain. So the students spend a year living in either Ecuador, France, or Spain, and continuing their education in the degree program that they are studying at one of our partner institutions. While they're there, they are also set up with a job, a co-op in industry, and are able to work during that time. Now, students taking advantage of this program in the course of 5 years, they graduate with 2 bachelor's degrees. So it is a fantastic program that has grown grown in size every single year since its inception back in 2020, I believe was the first semester that we did that. So the Global Engineering Program, specific for students studying fields of engineering and computing. Study abroad is open to all students. They just have to work with our study abroad office to locate the country that they would like to go to and the partner institution that will help them get set up in. Feel free to ask any more questions, either by unmuting your mic or also utilizing the chat. But here's some resources for parents and family. And boy, howdy, I hope I updated these QR codes. So parents.mst.edu is a fantastic resource that has information specifically for you, parents and family and friends of incoming students. So make sure that you also subscribe to the Parent and Family Connection and follow the Parent and Family Relations page on Facebook, and also check out the Parent and Family FAQ. And then when it comes to, there are a variety of both student and parent groups that are available on Facebook, both official and unofficial, that you can join. Even things as far as like rideshare for students. I know that on one of the parent Facebook pages that I'm a member of, parents will be saying, "Hey, I'm running something down from St. Louis to Raleigh. Does anyone need me to take their student anything?" Parents do a great job of taking care of each other and each other's students. We also have Parents and Family Weekend that will be coming up in September. We don't have date lockdown for that, but look for upcoming information about Parent and Family Weekend on parents.mst.edu. Any other questions that we can go over? Like I said, I'm here for you guys. So if there's any questions that we can talk about in more detail, I am happy to stay on here as long as I can. Oh, yes, QR codes. Absolutely. Once again, knock on wood. Here's hoping I remembered to upgrade them, update them. No, thank you guys. And like I said, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. But I really appreciate this session more than any of the others. The quality of the questions that you guys sent me ahead of time made my job so much easier. Like I said, I did talk at you for a very long period of time, but that was because you guys did an excellent job of setting me up for success with quality questions covering a gambit of topics. Um, and let me put once again my information back in the chat just so you don't have to scroll back up and find it. And then also when your student logs into their portal, apply.mst.edu, they'll see their specific individual admissions counselor and their student financial services counselor. However, all of us here at admissions are here to help. If you'd like a recording of this, just email it out. Just send me an email afterwards and I'll get it submitted to you. The link will go live once it processes and uploads. Then you can share it out as much as you need. All right, guys, sincerely, thank you so much. Switching admissions term, very good question. So if your student needs to defer from fall to spring, for instance, they can log into their portal, apply.mst.edu, and there at the bottom, middle QR code, is it working? All right, well, if you search Missouri SNT official parents, you should be able to find that. I think the link is also on parents.mst.edu. See, I knew I missed one of those QR codes. But on your student status page at apply.mst.edu, if they scroll to the bottom, there is a change term link. All they have to do is click that, select the term that they want to defer to. It'll ask just a few questions and they electronically sign it, and then that will be processed. So it depends on what scholarships you are eligible for. So there are some scholarships that are only applied at the fall semester. So starting in the spring semester, that could change some of the specific scholarships depending on what your financial aid offer looks like. Recommend reaching out to Student Financial Services just to confirm what specific scholarships you have and which ones could be affected. Most of the automatic longer term ones are administered in fall and in spring, but some of them are only administered in fall for the year. So it's very important to make sure what scholarships are and aren't. Something else I like to highlight, there's oftentimes I will see students that are going to start in fall, but then defer to spring, and they end up taking college coursework in the meantime. After you graduate high school, your student can, during the summertime, take college level coursework. But the moment they enroll in a course the fall semester after the high school graduation date, they are no longer a first time college student, even if they just take 2 credit hours starting in the fall semester, which is a full academic semester, unlike summer, then they are no longer a first time college student. They are a transfer student because they have post high school college level credit. So keep that in mind. I've seen many a student decide, hey, I'm going to take a semester, do my own thing, but I'm also going to take a course here or there at a community or local college. And then that changes their financial aid offer. So keep that in mind. I didn't mean to sound so ominous when I said that, just a common mistake that I see, not common, but oftentimes see. go ahead and reach out to me directly on that. Let's connect offline because I would be able to pull up your account and take a look at that. So make sure you grab my email address there, shoot me an email, and then I'll go over that with you. All right, guys, if there are no more questions, then I just want to thank you all sincerely for a great session. You made it more impactful with the questions that you asked. Broadcasting live from Centennial Hall in Rolla, Missouri, I have been and will continue to be Justin Rawls. Have a great night.